right, so let's start the podcast. Episode. I'm sick of starting with the episode thing. I'm not even going to say what episode it is anymore. You can read what episode it is.
Just read it.
Just read it there. But today, as you can see, we're doing a impromptu episode from the car. Just because.
Yeah, just because.
Just because, yeah.
Whatever.
I think the podcast idea, stemmed from Leigh and I just talking and having conversations in random places at random times. And we were like, we need to do a podcast because this is just too... We need to record this stuff. We thought about it in modes of transport. We're obviously not moving right now because, how much controversy that would cause amongst certain individuals.
I could just talk to myself.
Yeah,
you could drive, I could talk to myself.
Yeah, true. We could just have the camera there rolling. But yeah, welcome back to the #1 hair podcast in the world, self-acclaimed. Until it actually is.
Yeah.
We're here.
It's not.
Must be funny for you,
now.
because you can't see yourself on the camera, but I can see you.
Yeah.
Your mic's like this.
My mouth is here.
So it's funny because today we were thinking, what are we going to speak about? Like, what topics are we going to talk about? We don't have too long because we're going to see Dr. Jordan Peterson soon. And both of us rocked up and we were like, so what are we going to speak about? And we were like, I don't know. And we have this little concept that we run, and it's called Ideas 365. And it's a note, it's a shared Apple note that Leigh and I use. And what we do basically is we put an idea each. The idea of Ideas 365 is to put an idea each per day into the note, and then eventually scroll back down through it when we're looking for content or we're looking for something to do, so that we're never stuck. And this is actually a perfect implementation of that note. So we're going to have a little browse through Ideas 365 here and just pick a random bit of gold, a random bit of a random topic,
Let's
and
just
just go from it.
Let's show the kids. I don't know if the camera will pick this up.
Yeah, have a look at it on the camera, see what it looks like. No, not really.
Anyway,
No.
you get
the idea.
Yeah, you get the idea.
A 365 idea. So,
Yeah, you get the idea. Ideas 365. It's a big note. Loads of writing in it. And how long have we been doing this now?
we've been doing it for
Over a year? Has it been a year?
nearly, I would say since February of this year. It was since this year, wasn't it? So
Okay.
we got the idea from Kerwin Ray. He was the one who gave us the idea for it. But he had it in a slight different context, but this is just for everything. So let's have a little look.
Yeah, alright. What are we looking at?
I like the one from the 25th there. Didn't know how.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right. That's a little bit of a...
It's a little one.
Little bit of a rabbit hole that we could go down.
Yeah.
Maybe just give it a flick,
Just
and
a
then
big,
just stop,
just like a...
because that's very Right. Ooh, so this is what 7th of
August.
the 7th of August. So let's just read out some of the bullet points.
So from the 7th of August we had deliberately accomplishing nothing, and then we had the next round of network filming, short to mid-length women's haircuts, which could be coming soon. Look at our classes from a student's perspective. What would make this experience great? We have one instinct to survive and one guarantee that we won't. So this is how our notes
This
go.
one underneath. We won't mention
Yeah,
it.
let's not say
that one underneath too much.
But so I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Okay, let's.
I think maybe looking at classes from a student's perspective, what makes this experience great?
Ooh, we just.
Lights out. That's cool.
Cool.
Anyway,
Yeah, nice. Mood lighting.
or should we just start from the top? Deliberately.
Yeah, let's just go through them. Let's go through them.
So this is
the
the
second
7th.
one doesn't really make any difference, right?
No, but
Maybe the first one and the last one.
yeah. I like that one as well. That one. I'll kind of explain where I got that one from.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. So these are all yours, pretty much. So do you want to start? Yeah.
Oh.
I think they're all yours. I had nothing to contribute that day. I just landed
I
on
was
the
just
note.
in a dark place that day.
I just landed on the note, and then I just basically said, Lee's got it covered, don't worry.
You just got it.
Yeah.
What's up here as well? There's a lot. Yeah.
Alright, let's talk about deliberately accomplishing nothing. Where did that come from?
I can't remember. This is the hard thing about these notes. I can't actually remember where that come from. I'll have to stew on it for a minute and see what I thought.
So
about
I
that.
actually have something
What
there.
do you think? What do you think I meant by that?
I have something there that I literally just spoke to somebody about before I met you this afternoon.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to somebody in K2, and we were talking about in the service industry, especially as hairdressers or barbers, not just in the service industry, but you can see this across the planet at the moment, but the constant need to be busy, and what is that actually stemming from? And he was saying that in some sort of study or something that he was doing, that constant need to be busy came from a trauma response, and the trauma response was, I guess, that need to constantly do something so that you don't have time to like sit and be by yourself because you're scared of what will come up when you're sitting and being by yourself in silence with no distraction.
I think that's what, along the lines of what it would have been about. I'm trying to think. It probably would have been from a podcast or something that I heard it from. But what jumps up for me as well is like the procrastination piece. Like, why I've been trying to dig into that lately. Like, why do you procrastinate? And when you procrastinate, you can just deliberately be doing nothing. Like, again, it's the like trauma response, fear response of like knowing the steps that you need to take, but you're not letting yourself. You're not getting out of your own way. And you can just use distraction after distraction after distraction to like deliberately do nothing. And I don't mean nothing as in like just paralysis, like you're just doing nothing, but like just doing the same thing and expecting the same result. You're almost like, it's like doing nothing to get out of your own way. I think that is somewhere where it came from as well.
That's an interesting side to look at it too. I didn't even see it from that perspective.
Yeah.
I was only looking at it from the perspective of like, me and my life and how I'm always needing to do something.
Yeah.
I got even coming here today and doing this podcast in the circumstances of the day that we have. I literally just looked at Leigh before we started rolling and I was like, we're fucking psychos, aren't we? We just never stop. Like, we'll make it work even if it's impromptu, if it's like this.
Yeah.
We find ways to fill our time. So I think the need to always do something can also turn into a need to deliberately accomplish nothing, because accomplishment, what does that actually stem from? Like, why? I had a couple of really big revelations this week when it comes to accomplishment and why I have always felt the need to accomplish things. I don't know if I'm quite ready to share all of that yet because I'm still unpacking it, but it comes from a core trauma wound of not feeling good enough or not being enough. So it's constantly need then to fill that space, fill the space. And it can be done in such ways where it's not so objective, where you can look at it on the outside and think, procrastination is a very easy way to look at somebody avoiding the things that they need to do by filling their space with shit, like just playing video games or doing other things like that. But I'm filling that space with the need to try and accomplish something. So deliberately accomplishing nothing and knowing that that's okay as well is like, is huge, because it's like, well, if I deliberately accomplish nothing, and that is an accomplishment to do nothing.
Yeah.
So another K2, shout out Larissa, shout out Andrew Walsh earlier, but Larissa is on my table. She works in kind of like the, I guess, holistic healing space. She's a medium. She works with energy. She works with a lot of stuff. So I called her one day to talk about business, and she just literally took me through a whole like energetic healing that I didn't expect.
Oh wow.
And she was like, "Fucking hell, you got like the weight of the world on your shoulders right now, right? You just need this healing." So she gave me a task which I have failed completely at doing, but she gave me a task of taking 30 minutes per day and just going outside sitting in nature, grounding, putting my feet in the grass or sand or whatever, and just looking at the sky or looking at the trees and just doing nothing, no stimulation, deliberately not having any stimulation, and see what comes up. And it gave my mind space, and I've been doing that a lot more in the last couple of weeks, and it gave my mind space. It gave me space to feel what feels good, what feels bad, what feels good about what we're doing next, what feels not quite right, where are we going to go next. And if I'm constantly scrolling or filling the space with stupid shit, then I'm not going to achieve anything. So deliberately doing nothing can actually do so much.
Yeah.
You know?
I really like that, yeah.
It can do
I wasn't
so
thinking
much.
about it from that point of view, but that's probably what it meant.
Yeah. But like deliberately doing nothing in the procrastination sense, it depends where it's coming from.
Yeah.
You know, like I think in the procrastination sense, you're deliberately doing nothing. That's also a bit of a protection mechanism.
It is. It's a huge protection mechanism.
Yeah, because it's like, oh no, it's scary. It's fear. It's a fear response.
Yeah. I looked into it just this morning actually, and it was talking into the ego. It's probably the ego doing it to you. It's getting. It's almost like it gets worried that it's losing control of you, so it puts you back into a procrastination state, like a paralysis state, and then you can you can deliberately just achieve nothing or do nothing. But touching on your point there, like it's so important. Is it something that we haven't done enough of? Is to just do nothing, just be.
Yeah,
you know,
because
a human being, not a human doing.
The achievement is it's always there. Like, and that's the thing right now, right? Like, so another lesson to tie into that one. A guy called Yossi Ginsberg came to one of our masterminds, and he was talking about Darwin's theory and the theory of competition and, you know, survival of the fittest, and like that, you know, human nature in the modern world is built off of Darwin's theory, which is actually a false theory, because Darwin's theory is built on the premise of that there's not enough resources in the world as the population grows, so that we all have to kill each other in order to survive. That is not true anymore. But why are we still out here just constantly pushing and pushing and pushing? Because it's like, oh, we better do it now because before the next person does it. And it's the need for everything now, like no patience.
Yeah.
But constantly filling the space doesn't allow the water to flow and for just things to flow. And you know, like what you were saying, touching on your point there, Hannah's been saying this a lot lately as well, and it's about you know, there's a lot of disassociation in procrastination, like disassociating, you know, like leaving your body, like it's completely. Like a freeze response, and it's just like, well, sometimes procrastination is purposeful from people who just are lazy as fuck, and that's okay. But sometimes it's literally a trauma response, or it's a nervous system response.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard one to kind of pin down.
Great.
Deliberately
doing nothing,
accomplishing nothing.
Yeah. Before we wrap that one up, I've just reminded me of something I read somewhere in a book. They were talking about that was one of the common issues of our time is like not allowing ourselves to like think anymore, because apparently back in the day, like all the greats, Edison and Ford and all of these great people, great minds, would just give themselves like thinking time. And I think it was Edison. He had a chair in a room and there was nothing in the room. It was just a chair in the middle of the room. And then anybody who like was close to him said he was a bit strange because he'd be like talking to you. And then if he had an idea, he would just stop and just walk into this room and just go sit in the chair and just think about it for like an hour. Which I would love to do. I would love to be that weirdo. But that's how important they found it. Again, just go and deliberately do nothing. Just go and sit there and just think about this one thing. And that's almost like meditation, really. It's probably like a Western kind of style of like single point meditation. You just sit there, think about it. Because it's hard to sit there and do absolutely nothing. You know, the mind is a thought machine and it keeps thinking. But just to allow that to think. And again, I think people are afraid to do nothing because they don't want to be, like you said earlier, they don't want to be alone with their thoughts. I quite enjoy it.
Mm.
I quite enjoy talking to myself. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's so much work to be done. The work starts then, doesn't it? When you sit with yourself and go, oh, okay, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, so many different narratives come through, so many different dialogues. When I did, so I said I failed that task that Larissa gave me miserably. I did, but like for the first couple of weeks, I was doing it maybe 5 times a week, and now I've kind of dropped off a little bit less, and I haven't done it in the last maybe week or so. But when I was doing it, and I was sitting there, it made me realize how fast my mind actually is, and it made me contemplate: has it always been this fast, or is it becoming conditioned to become faster because of the algorithms and all of the stuff that we're taking on board, and the amount of stories that I'm seeing, and the amount of things that the world and the constant pressures of the outside media is forcing us to keep up with because of its somewhat, in brackets, importance. It made me realize, fucking hell, I'm thinking about a lot of shit. And right now we're in the kind of position with the business of doing a little bit less with it, slimming things down from a energy standpoint for us, so that we can give more and give that better experience. This might roll very nicely into the next bullet point on the list there. Because we found that we were filling space too. Like obviously we do the academy, we do the online platform, we do this, we do a lot of things. We cut some hair from time to time, and it's, again, our calendars have just become full. Like we've worked our way to this point where we've got to the point where we have literally gone from working full-time in the shop into doing full-time in the shop with a little bit of education on the side. Then they almost became 2 part-time jobs. Then it kind of swayed the other way, where now we're doing kind of like more education than we are doing hair cutting. But all of the space that we left behind, because we thought, once we leave the shop, we're going to have loads of time. Once we're not cutting people's hair, loads of time. But we've found a way to fill that space.
I think it's a human condition. I think if you look back to, like, was it in the 70s or 80s when they were talking about, if life keeps going this way, I can't remember, there's a video about it, I'm sure I can find it on YouTube. If life keeps going this way, by 2012 or something, we'll all be working, 50% of the hours that we do, and life will just be this like grand thing, because we would have worked so many things out that life would be so easy for ourselves. And that was the prediction. The prediction was we'd be working way less, we'd all be way happier, life would be so much easier. And look what we did. We filled every freaking moment. And now it's ridiculous.
But yes, we did fill every moment, but somebody somewhere along the line saw a way to make money out of it.
Yeah.
And they monetized it.
Yeah.
Commercialized it. So we're just the strings, and the puppet master has us all on strings and doing whatever the fuck they want.
Yep.
All them big advertising and marketing agencies and all of it. Like that whole thing I talked about on Instagram the other day, the attention pandemic with Deluxe. And it's like,
Yeah.
literally, guys, like, we're getting to a point now where there is literally, the lights are back on. There's literally 2 videos happening at once. 2 videos at once. So now think about the concept of doing nothing, deliberately accomplishing nothing or doing nothing. Because that's the thing, accomplishing and doing are different things.
Yeah, that's why
is there accomplishment?
Being careful with the language there, because accomplishing means, there's something in it, whereas doing is just kind of like,
I guess when you look at nothing as an accomplishment, then it switches.
That's when you change and so what I was going to say a little bit there on your point earlier about, the accomplishment piece is, there was a quote that I wrote down, it's in Ideas 365 actually, about creativity. I read it again this morning when I was scrolling through, and it was like, because we talk about creativity all the time, don't we? I think it's one of those things we're just always going to keep refining about how we talk about it. But it was like, creativity, we've all got it, but we all treat it like there's some competition, like there's some sort of like reward that we're aiming towards. Whereas like creativity is the reward. And when you flip that, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like right now we're working and working and working. Not just us, everybody. Working and working and more and more. And I want to get here and I want to get here. To do what? To eventually not have to do it and do nothing. Which is like the reward at the end of the thing. When you can just have it now.
You're missing the reward.
You're missing the reward because you might never get it. But the deliberately doing nothing is the reward.
Well,
that's quite interesting.
Very interesting.
But this is why it's so important to be careful about who you surround yourself with, because I started doing walking in the grass again after you said that. I was like, you know what? I used to walk for like an hour every day in the grass in lockdown. For anyone who used to or still follows me on Instagram, you would have seen me putting out weird ass stories of me just walking in the grass. And I was like, I used to do that every day. And then, I loved the benefits of it. I thought it was brilliant. One of the pillars of health, grounding, grounding, whatever you want to call it. And I watched Andrew Huberman on Huberman Labs at the same time. It was probably that day. And it was like, 9 things or 10 things you should be doing to stay healthy. And one of them was getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. As soon as you wake up, just go outside. And I was like, great, there's my segue. Walk outside barefoot in the grass, and I just stand there, look around, beautiful. And it wasn't half an hour, it was 10 minutes. I was like, I'll give myself 10 minutes every day just to walk outside, get sun in the eyes and stand in the grass. And yeah, been doing that.
Interesting. Isn't it?
Because it's so like, that's the power of like putting yourself around people that you trust and value their opinion. Like if someone else said that, like, I know the power of grounding.
Yeah.
But imagine if it was like some random or whatever. I don't know.
Interesting that you say that, because what I picked up there towards the end are great points, but for anyone listening who might listen to this stuff and think, oh fuck it, I couldn't find half an hour in my day, I think in spiritual land it becomes this like showboating thing, as to be like, oh, I meditate for 2 hours, or I meditate for 1 hour, and it's like, you can find meditation in anything.
Yeah.
Like that lady Larissa said to me when she gave me that advice, she was like, just throughout your day, and this is really practical advice for people in the salon environment, but just throughout your day, in between clients, like you're meeting a lot of people, a lot of energy, a lot of cleansing needed from certain energies. When you are washing your hands, just take a moment and take a couple of deep breaths and actually look at your hands and look at the water and feel it and just be present in that moment. That's meditation. It doesn't have to turn into this big competition where you levitate. And that's another side of like spirituality, where it's like people get into that kind of spiritual ego state, and it's just like, oh my god, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It can be like, I wouldn't consider myself, I love spirituality, I love the idea of it. I wouldn't consider myself spiritual because I don't practice it all the time. I'm still very much caught up in the Western way of living in the Western world, but
yeah, I heard I was doing some research the other day on this, and two things I want to just try and put a little bit of value in there with that is like, I give myself an hour a day because we are, we're trying to reel things back and calm down and deliberately do nothing. But I'm giving myself an hour a day. Half of that, I give myself 30 minutes for like the spiritual like practices. And that's, I do 10 minutes of breath work. I do 10 minutes of meditation. And then, what was it on that we do? Oh yeah, 10 minutes in the grass and in the light. That's it. That's my 30 minutes. And then the other 30 minutes is a run or a workout. That's it. That's my hour to myself in the morning. But that sets me up for the day. And some people would say, oh, that's not enough. It's like, okay, but if I'm so consistent with that and that compounds over my life, I'd probably accumulate more than someone who's just in and out of it, going ham sandwich, doing 2 hours of meditation every day and standing in the sun for like 3 hours a day.
Yeah, it's all about finding what works for you, right? Like,
and look, don't worry if you can't do the full half hour. Just find a little bit of time.
Yeah. And like, exercise like that, going for a run or going for a walk, and that can be also put into the meditation bracket. Like, it doesn't have to be this one certain specific thing, because what I realized when I did stop and do nothing was how fast my mind was, right? I touched on that already. But it also made me realize that meditation is hard. And for a lot of people, like their minds and your minds, whoever's listening to this, your mind is moving fast. A lot of you might not even be just watching this. You might be doing something else while this is on. You might be driving the car. You might be scrolling Instagram. You might be doing something else while this is on. And I catch myself in that place all the time. You know, doing something else while I'm doing something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just practicing. It's mindfulness. It's actually mindfulness.
It's actually mindfulness, yeah.
It's literally mindfulness. That's basically
there it is. There's a word
sums
for
up everything.
Yeah.
That we just spoke about in the last few minutes. But it's just being mindful of how you are and how you're being, or if you're being.
And touching on what you said there about like you not being spiritual, I think you are spiritual. I think because
Oh, thank you.
do you feel validated now?
I feel so much better.
Go on. But
Let me have my moment.
the reason I say that is not because I think you're like a Gandhi or a Buddha or anything.
Why not?
Far from it. but the spirituality, like coming back to the meditation, is the practice. You're practicing like what it takes to have better relationships, better health, better leadership, better everything. And that to me is a spiritual practice. You're in touch with spirit. And like, if that's not it, what else is it?
And it's all a practice, isn't it?
It's all a practice.
And that's one thing that we can give anyone who's listening to this value from, is like that we don't ever claim to be perfect at any of this stuff, but far from it. But we are practicing it,
Yes.
and we look up to people who we take different pieces from, right? Like we're going to see Jordan Peterson tonight. Don't love everything about Jordan Peterson. I don't think I'd want to be Jordan Peterson. But I take a bit of what he does and, you know, his practices and add it into what we're doing, and we just see where we can take value from absolutely every human that we come into contact with. And lessons.
And I love that what you just said, and we say it in the academy as well. Like we don't have all the answers, but what we can do is share what's worked for us, and that's what we do.
And so far, it's worked pretty well. We've done okay so far.
All right.
So let's get on to the second one.
So we've got. I think we could probably get through this one fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So this line says, "Look at our classes from a student's perspective. What would make this experience great?" So I got this from a guy called Bert Kreischer, who's a comedian. Some of you probably listen to his stuff. He's mates with Joe Rogan. And he was on the Steve-O podcast. You would remember Steve-O from Jackass. And they talk into the mechanics and like the business side of comedy, which was really interesting because it made me think about our business model and in the hair industry, and can we leverage what other people do in other industries. And one of the best things that he said there was exactly that. He was like, you know, where's it gone? I've lost it.
7th of August.
7th of August. I've lost it. Why? There it is. So it says, look at our classes from a student's perspective and what would make this experience great. And I think that was a little trap that probably we fell into a little bit at the start. Like we were kind of, or for me, I'll just speak from my perspective. I thought I'm going to put out what I would like to see or what I think is going to be good, but not using the golden rule and putting myself in the student shoes and going, actually, that's probably like information overload, or there's not like a strategic enough process here to actually learn.
Oh, hey guys. So if you've been regularly listening to our podcasts, you'll hear us speak into the power of branding and personal brand. Well, we believe it's almost as important as cutting hair in the modern day landscape of our industry and world. Therefore, we have recently engaged a branding expert with over 20 years experience to create a brand accelerator course on our online platform, The Network. To learn more, please visit the description of this podcast. Now back to the podcast.
So yeah, that was where that came from, and I thought it was really good, even to the small little value-added pieces. You know, the little pieces that we do. You know, you might get a notepad, you might get a pen, and you might get just the value-added pieces. Like he was talking about it from, he would just turn up to other comedian shows and just look at it as an experience, not necessarily for the comedy. Obviously, he likes the comedy, but he was like, I'm the person, I'm the fan now. I'm coming to this now. And he was like, what makes it good for me? Yeah, what's here for me? And I think that's really good. It's a good practice.
Yeah, taking stuff out of other industries. Like, I'm looking for a new house at the moment, you know, and like when I go to open houses, like how the real estate agents actually present the open houses, how friendly they are.
Yep.
The person, you know, if they look at you in the eyes, if they smile, like some of them are just not being nice at all, they're being quite rude. So that all makes such a big difference. Huge.
And some are desperate as well. You know, we're so spiritually tapped in that you could smell the desperation sometimes, can't you? And that all comes from the experience, putting yourself in the customer's shoes of not coming across as like desperation in the house kind of viewing sense. You know, that experience is really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can just walk in and go, whoa, they're just trying to sell me this damn thing. No thanks. That's from a place of desperation.
And you know, when you go to an education class, or you go to a business seminar, or you go to whatever, there can be that desperation piece as well, where it's overly trying to sell themselves to you as well. And that's not really a good experience either. You know, like when you spend your money, you want to go somewhere where the people who are running it are on top of what they're doing. You know, they know exactly what's going on. They make it interactive. It's not just about us, like Leigh was saying. Like, I think that was, you know, when I first got into education, to be completely honest, there was a part of me at the time that was doing it to get some sort of validation, and to get some sort of, to be seen, or to be loved, or to be wanted, or, you know, it was like coming from that place. But the more that I'm in the education industry now, the more I realize that it is about the people that we're teaching. You know, it's something that we spoke about in the very first podcast. It's about the people that are in the class, and how can we make the experience great for them? Because if we make the experience great for them, we're going to make the experience great for us too. It's going to be awesome for us, because, you know, like, one of the things is, like, we're not speakers. You know, we're not like people that are up there doing motivational speakers, and we're definitely not big black boxes with fucking on a tripod and loads of cables plugged into the back of us, just projecting and speaking stuff at people. You know, it's a very interactive environment, and, you know, we value that a lot. But, you know, as we say all the time, and, you know, just to kind of back up what Leigh was saying, we do so much education ourselves. We go and put ourselves in so many educational environments, but we're also protective of where we go to. We don't just fill our minds with rubbish. We go to stuff like Jordan Peterson, stuff like Kerwin Ray, you know, stuff like all these other people, like Leigh was talking about, Andrew Hooperman. You know, like, Leigh has hundreds of people that he loves to watch. Many. But, like, you know, Stephen Bartlett,
they're all
Paul Check, you know, all these people, like, they have their value. Like, Wim Hof is another one, and we literally look at it from a nuts and bolts place. And I think, you know, looking at it from a hairdressing perspective and barbering, think about when you go to a massage parlor, or not necessarily a massage parlor, that can be maybe overboard when it comes to the service at times, especially towards the end.
What do you mean?
But don't mean anything. But think about, like, okay, you go to a spa, right? You go to a spa, you go to a bar, you go to a restaurant, right? Food is a big topic, big distraction. But go to a restaurant, and why do you love certain restaurants? What is it about the experience? You know, think about how it's touching the senses. All the smells, all the flavors, all the music, you know, it all makes a difference. You know, I went into the shop the other day, and I'm not in there often, and just the type of music that was playing for me at that particular time and during that day, it was off-putting. I was just like, this is not really adding or becoming a good experience for me, just being around that music right now. Like, and that was just my feeling in that moment. So think about when the consumer or the customer or your clients come in, they might not necessarily always be feeling that, but if you create a familiarity with how the feeling is when they come into your space, especially in the academy is very consistent when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It always feels the same.
Always the same.
When you come into the academy,
Yep.
you know, we have the smells, we have the incense, we have the certain types of music playing. We don't, you know, we have a playlist coming actually, Area Academy Beats. Get it on Spotify. We'll get it on there soon. But yeah, it's just that sensory experience overall. How is it feeling from a customer's perspective? And that's going to make a big difference, really.
And that's not to fall into the trap of the customer's always right. It's just thinking about, how can this experience be most beneficial and be most valuable, I think, for the greater good.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll get on to the last topic.
That was a nice little...
That was a nice little segue, wasn't it?
I think it's just a nice practical business tip. Or life tip, just whatever you're doing. Put yourself on the other side for a minute. Make it not about you for once.
That's one thing about our industry, like, you know, one thing that we end up giving a lot of young kids advice on, and stuff, you know, because we've slightly changed our, I guess, angle when it comes to social media. You know, we no longer post on social media to try and attract clients, so you won't see many haircut posts from us, because we're not trying to talk to the client. We're trying to talk to other barbers, other hairstylists, other professionals, to try and bring them to our academy. That's the meaning behind our marketing. We're trying to, you know, funnel that type of customer. And quite often you see young barbers posting stuff that is for other barbers, but they really need clients. But like, who are you trying to really gain validation from there? You know, are you speaking to the problems that you're solving for people? Because as a natural byproduct of doing that, you're going to get validation from other barbers anyway. So that's just another little segue. We can get into it another time.
All right, so this last point, this could be a deep one. This could be a rabbit hole. And this kind of relates a little bit back to the first point that we made as well. We could tie it in. So this line says, we have one instinct to survive and one guarantee that we won't. How... it just sent me into space.
But isn't it interesting? We try so hard to survive, but we won't anyway. Like, it's kind of counterintuitive.
It's just the big paradox of the human condition. Like,
it's just everything. It sums up everything.
But like, that line in itself just makes everything that we do just seem so ridiculous. Everything. Like, even, like, I'm not even talking the things that we consciously do, like unconsciously. Think of the way your genes are made up, you know, like Richard Dawkins got that book, the Selfish Gene, and he says like your genes are in control. It's the survival of the fittest, and all they're trying to do is survive. It's like, but they're not gonna. It's wild, isn't it?
So with that being said, is it not in our best interests to just really enjoy every moment then and be present?
Just to deliberately do nothing.
Is it not in our best interests to do that? Because if we're not going to be here anyway, like, you know, Richard Dawkins' book, like you said, The Selfish Gene, there has to be a bit of it that's selfish then, because who are we leaving it behind for? Yes, we have people that we love. Yes, we have families that we love, but a few generations down the line and we're forgotten about. I think about, like, we can remember our grandparents. We can't even remember our great-grandparents. So once we become the great-grandparents, and looking at the way that the world is moving and the way that the new generations are coming through, you know, what we're trying so hard to do from an accomplishment standpoint is going to be fucking worth nothing to these newer generations. It's a bit of a foundation that we're building for them to sit on, or for them to I guess work on or work from. But if we're not enjoying it, if we're not actually enjoying it, then then why? You know, like, I think, again, to touch on the middle point of making the experience better for the customer, it's also about making the experience better for us. And to wrap these up in a nice little sandwich, the two of them, the 3 points, I guess you could say. We said at the beginning that we're putting the business on a little bit of a diet, because we want to make the experience better for the customers. We want to make the experience better for ourselves. And we want to enjoy ourselves and be present while we're doing it, and have space in between to learn and to let the lessons integrate, to tweak things, to try new things, you know. So going into 2023, we have changed a lot of what we're going to be doing at the academy. There's going to be a lot less services available, and all will be revealed, but it's going to be more exciting. It's going to be more quality over quantity. We're going to work with people and barbers and hairstylists on a different level, a level that we're more passionate about, a level that we enjoy more this kind of level, the shit that actually matters, because anyone can, like, you know, most people are cutting good hair now.
Yep.
Most people are cutting hair pretty good, and I guess our point of difference really is the fact that we can help you cut hair better, and we can help you with all this other stuff. So stay tuned. You know, you might see a few little nuggets dropped here and there about what we're going to be doing. I think we'll probably dedicate a whole podcast to that at some point.
Yeah, yep. In the new year, let's do a whole pod on that. That'd be great.
Just when it's really crystal clear, because right now it's still a little bit foggy as to like how all of it looks, but we've had some really big breakthroughs in the last week or so. A lot of weight has been lifted from our shoulders. A lot of new shit has come through. But yeah, if we are going to die in the end, what does it all matter?
Exactly, and I think...
But then it doesn't really give us an excuse to just do fuck all either.
No, and that was the point that I was going to like touch on. I don't think it doesn't mean we could just do whatever we want, you know, because what we do does have a knock-on effect on everybody else, and the kind of planet that we do leave behind, and the trauma patterns and the nervous system patterns that we do leave behind on people and the planet, you know, everything like that. So I think it's about having that in mind, being a bit of a futurist, but also not forgetting to enjoy it right now. Like, enjoy the whole thing if you can. And someone said, enjoy it if you can. I can't remember who said that.
Mind-boggling stuff. Yeah, all of it. I'm just digesting all of it.
But they were like, enjoy it if you can, because so many people do things they actually just don't enjoy. So enjoy it if you can, you know, and I think the point of doing, you know, spending some time doing nothing is that reflection time, like one of all the things Owen was saying there, you know, integrating and seeing what works and trying new things and getting creative. You can't do that without a moment of reflection. And I think that time of reflection is really important as well. So enjoy your life, enjoy the things that you do, and reflect. And I think something, They know. They're
trying to shut us down.
Yeah, they shut us down. This could be a cool little segue as well. Talking about enjoyment, maybe we need to change the word to fulfillment.
And mindfulness, I think it comes back to being mindful brings that.
Because some people can say they're doing things. Like, let's use our industry, for example, okay? Someone will say, I get a haircut because I enjoy it. And then the question goes, but does it really fulfill you? You know, we've spoken about this a lot lately, haven't we? Mm. Because if it did fulfill you, you probably wouldn't have to hold on to it so tightly. And maybe that's a terrible example, but do you get what I mean? It's along those lines.
But it's the same for giving one, right? Like, giving a haircut.
Yeah, or let's say giving a haircut. Yeah. I do it because I'm so passionate and I love it. Well, okay. But what are you passionate about, and what do you love about it? And
why do you do it 70 times a week?
70 times a week, because if that truly fulfilled you, you'd be the happiest fucker in the world. Sorry for swearing, but you would be, and life would not be bad. But the sad truth is that 75% of people are sad, are down, are in pain, and are depressed, and it's pretty bad.
And for the 25% who aren't, keep fucking doing what you're doing.
Yeah, well, keep
if that's what is bringing you that
Yeah.
joy, then keep doing it. Great.
Yeah, joy and fulfillment, I think, is the keys there.
Yeah.
And then something that Simon Sinek talks about as well is thinking about, do you think about the I or do you think about the group? And that's another great paradox of being a human. Which one is it? Because some people say, no, look after yourself to look after others. And then others will say, look after others, and then they'll look after you. That's the great paradox. And he says they're both true.
Yeah.
It just depends. I think it depends where you're at in your life and how much you can give and when you need to retract. It's the chicken or the egg scenario. It's like
having that awareness around it, though, knowing that looking after others is ultimately looking after you, helps you look after you better.
Yeah.
And helps you look after others better.
And back to our first point, part of looking after you is just giving yourself a little bit of time.
I you're right though. Like, I am actually spiritual.
You are.
Because yesterday I had a really good moment of mindfulness too, right? Like, so I did my morning routine, and Leigh and I had our morning huddle, which we do most mornings, and usually, like, I'm out of bed, I've got my morning routine done by the time I get on the huddle, but I hadn't left bed yet by the time the huddle came up. And
it's a horrific sight. It's horrible.
Yeah, Leigh saw me with my top off.
Oh God,
terrible, right?
Please.
But you know what? Like, there was part of judgment was kind of creeping in a little bit on me, thinking, oh, like, what is he going to think, that I'm just lazing around in bed or this and that? But I was like, you know what? I needed the sleep. I woke up. I actually, before I got on the call anyway, I did all of this fucking Black Friday shit for our pages. Like, I did loads of productive stuff. Now, it wasn't in the order in which I'd usually start my morning, but I overslept and I clearly needed the sleep. So I released the judgment. But then I went out and I did my run after we had our huddle. And I did the rest of my morning routine as I would have done before I got disrupted. And I went to get my coffee, and I was kind of walking to the coffee shop, and I was walking pretty briskly. I was walking with a brisk pace to the coffee shop, right? And I got my coffee, and I turned around, and I was walking back at the same pace, and I was just thinking, what am I in such a rush for? Literally, like, what am I in such a rush for? Like, what am I rushing to do right now? I need to break this conditioning. That's what I was thinking to myself.
Yeah.
Because then I went back home, sat in front of the computer, and just sat there for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, not really doing a lot, but just kind of letting everything process and mapping out how the rest of the day looks. So in that moment when I was walking back, why did I need to walk so much faster? Why? Like, what am I rushing around for? And I find myself, today I was in a similar situation, just triggers come up. And I think the triggers that do come up at times cause a certain response. And it's that response of rushing and trying to frantically get things done.
And that's the practice there, the mindfulness practice.
Exactly.
You, like, in that story, you notice yourself twice.
Yeah.
And that's what most people can't do, is have that awareness and that mindfulness around what's actually happening. So you notice yourself when you found judgment coming over you in the morning. Great, you got a mechanism to be like, that's ridiculous, it's not true. Great, I'm back on the straight and narrow. And then you're out again, rushing to get your coffee, you caught yourself, you got a mechanism, back on the straight and narrow. And I think that was this whole, like, the spirituality, for the lack of a better word, the spirituality journey or mindfulness journey. It doesn't mean life's going to be like way easier for you. You're just going to have some mechanisms to keep yourself on the straight and narrow. You'll still notice yourself doing things, but it's catching yourself and just getting back to that middle path.
Yeah, and that's exactly what meditation is, right? When meditation gets hard, it's just finding and actually noticing that your mind is going somewhere else and then bringing it back to present.
Yep.
That's exactly what meditation is.
Meditation, baby. Single point meditation. I do it every day. It's brilliant.
So yeah. Oh, look. There's some lights here again.
And there was light.
I noticed the screen was getting a little bit in and out of focus, so it might be good to do that. But yeah, I think that was a really great podcast. I think there's a lot of value there.
Yeah.
Deliberately accomplishing nothing.
This
There's
is
a lot
our
of
kind
power.
of deliberately accomplishing nothing, isn't it? Just having a podcast. You know, it's great.
Yeah.
We're accomplishing
But
something,
deliberately accomplishing nothing accomplishes actually so much.
yeah.
You know, we've converted a lot of business through this podcast already, believe it or not. You know, you might not see the views at 1 million views yet or anything like that, but we don't do it for that because
Yeah,
that's not what it's about.
it's fine.
You know, so thank you for listening.
Thank you, guys.
This podcast is sponsored by The Network, the #1 hair education platform, online platform in the world. As you would have seen at the ad at the very start.
Yeah.
But subscribe. Do all the stuff that people do online. Do it now, like in a rush, like be really fast to do it because none of what we just spoke about matters. But do it now because in a couple of generations' time, nothing will matter anyway.
Yeah. Will just be ones and zeros on a screen.
But
Pixels.
before we wrap it up, one thing that you said when it came to like the ability to change the trauma patterns, when I put my hand on my chest, I don't know if anyone's watching this, I was like, whoa, that fucking hit. What came up for me there was our ability with our kids to be able to change all of the generations after that.
Yep.
That's why we're here.
And that's why we do what we do. Really.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think, and some people get into that mindset, don't they, of like, oh, I should just be able to do whatever I want and I'm just going to do this. That's fine. But if you keep repeating those patterns, guess what? Your kids are going to get that. And if you don't teach them how to get out of that, their kids are going to get that. And thankfully, we're in the time of information. We're in the information age now, and we're all kind of waking up a little bit, and we're all getting frameworks and practices around everything that, you know, we come into this world with. So
If we know
it's
better,
pretty cool. Like we always say, if we know better, you got to do better.
keep it real, kids.
Ciao for now.
Until next time.
Bye.